Good evening.
Hey, Bill.
Beat you to it again.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
This is going to be a good one. I hope. I
Well,
think.
yeah, woe is us.
Um, Quick recap at the back end of last week. We're going to kind of review the first of the woes. There was a word that we heard over and over again that we're going to hear over and over again. We did a quick review over it. Let's hit that word real quick. You remember that word? Upokritos. What do we translate that word as?
Upokritos?
Yes. What does it sound like?
Nothing good.
Yeah.
Upokritos.
Yes. Starts with an H. That word is translated to.
Hello?
No. Kritos. Crits. Hypocrites.
Oh, why don't you just say hypocrites?
So the term that is translated
Upokritos.
upokritos.
Almost
Yeah.
like hypocrites.
Hypocrites.
Yeah. Okay.
And most commonly we define that in our culture. We've used this term and we've said
In our
like,
culture, we say someone who says one thing and does another,
but
or acts one way and lives another.
yes, in the Hebrew world, in the Roman world,
Well, it was strictly your being hypocrite was an actor
an actor
who played a part that everyone understood.
Yes.
That's the part he's playing.
Yes.
There's no misleading. There's no judgment. He's this, but he's
Yes.
playing this part. So it's a different part.
Yes. And this is why it's important because Jesus turns to the crowds at the beginning of chapter 23 and he says, the scribes and Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. What's important about Moses' seat?
That's the seat of the law.
The seat where they read the law in the synagogue. And he says, so do and observe whatever they tell you. So he's telling these people to do and observe all of these things of the law.
Right. Follow the law.
That they're told.
Well, that's what they've been taught their whole lives.
So if we say a person's a hypocrite and they say one thing and do another, shouldn't we? Why would we listen to them? Don't we kind of throw all of that out in our worldview?
No, it's more like what Jesus was saying.
Yeah.
They're saying one thing, they're telling you one thing, but they're doing not the opposite. But they're not following their own rules, laws,
Yes.
judgment, or whatever.
He says, to do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works they do. For they preach, but they do not practice.
Right.
It says they tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders.
Yet they don't do anything to take those or do those tasks.
And he says, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their fingers. So let's just go back. If they were operating like an Old Testament guide, what would we call that person? Person from the Old Testament who is reminding people of the law, reminding people of their commitment to God and who God is and the right way to live.
We're full of prophets.
So we'd call them prophets.
Right.
And before the day of the kings, we'd call them that book in the Bible.
Deuteronomy?
Nope. No. Keep going. Forward.
Kings?
Nope. Before the kings.
Levites. Leviticus.
Nope. After Deuteronomy, before Kings. Not Joshua, but Judges.
Thank you, audience.
So those judges, they were supposed to bring right judgment.
Okay.
Were there multiple words for judgment? One was Dean, and that was like bad.
Bad retribution.
But the other one starts with an M. Anybody know who is calling me from Griffithville, Arkansas?
No.
Okay.
Starts with an M?
M. Mish.
Mishra. Mishpah.
Mishpat.
You could, yeah.
So
Many of these Hebrew words that I cannot remember.
so din is the retributive justice,
Right.
right? It says you did wrong, and here's the consequences.
Right. Here's how you suffer.
And Mishpat says you did wrong.
But this is how you get back to being right.
This is how you get back to being right. Which one puts a heavy weight on people?
Dean.
Din does.
Yes.
Din puts a heavy weight on people. But the job of the judges, was it to put a heavy weight on people?
No, it was to make the correct or follow the correct path or to readjust their way of thinking.
So it would seem that if we're interpreting the law properly, what Jesus is saying is that if we're listening to the law, and if we are teachers of the law, it shouldn't be to put a heavy weight on people. It should be there is a weight, but here's how you relieve that weight, and that weight becomes easy. And instead of that yoke being heavy and burdened, it is light. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you
rest.
For my yoke is easy. And my burden is light. Sounds like something that Jesus said.
Yeah.
So he's challenging these scribes and Pharisees, these keepers of the law. He's challenging them and letting the people know that, hey, we have a problem here. They're laying all of these weights on people, refusing, like demanding the law to be followed, demanding righteousness and holiness, but not actually teaching people how to accomplish it. Because is there anyone righteous under the law?
None.
None. Is there anyone, like, even the law today, is there anyone who could say, I have never broken the law?
Most likely not.
Most likely not, because how many laws are there? How do we even know?
You can't count them.
It's illegal to, like, whaling is illegal in Oklahoma?
You mean the big mammal whale?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I would.
Can't kill whales in Oklahoma.
Well, no. I can say what? Because probably hundreds of them in Lake Eufaula or Keystone.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Ulaga even, you know.
What if you catch Loch Ness? Is that, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just.
That's not a whale, though. We
not
can't prove that.
Yeah, I mean, anyway.
Let me ask real quick.
Yes.
The Sadducees and the Pharisees.
Yes.
Living under this burden that they're forcing to other people.
Yes.
I wonder, did they think it was an easy yoke to carry? Or were they being critical of others because they couldn't? I mean, the lessers. Was that be why they were so rough on people?
I think they were so. Yeah. They. Yes.
Because if they're sitting there saying, "I'm carrying this burden, I'm practicing and following and adhering to all of these laws and things like that, you should too."
So they kept a scorecard.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So the Pharisees and Sadducees had a scorecard of how holy they were.
Mm-hmm.
Like what their holiness was, how they observed the laws. But one of the things about observing the law in yourself and holding yourself accountable to that, and I see it all the time, like as a track coach, especially right now, it's a very particular thing because even inside of teams, you get this friction at times because some feel like they work harder than others.
Well, I'm trying hard. Why aren't you?
Yes. Hey, why don't you give some effort? Like I hear this back and forth, and it's like, hey, do you have a plank? Because it seems like you're chasing a speck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
like it's this. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Like we've all had days, we've all had times, and so I can see the frustration, but you're so it is easy to get so aware of, well, I'm working hard to accomplish something, and you're not doing your job. And
here's my response that maybe you should try. Who's the coach here?
Yes, I've done that. Yeah.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
had
We've
to,
only got one coach. We're room for one coach.
yeah,
That's what we need is everyone look to the coach and saying, how am I doing, coach?
yeah,
You're doing your best. Could you try a little harder?
yeah, and that's the thing. I love how there's some really high end coaches that do a lot of really good things and teach a lot of good things and help a lot of people. Um, Nick Saban, he always uses the statement, and I've heard him say it over and over and over again. High achievers don't like mediocre people, and mediocre people don't like high achievers because high achievers are going to do stuff and give effort that mediocre people won't. And the high achievers are going to get frustrated that they're paired up with mediocre people because they know that their lack of effort is holding everybody back. But the mediocre people are going to feel like they're being shown up by the people who are high achievers because they're doing more and doing extra and doing it harder and with more effort than everybody else. And so the high achiever is going to try to shame the mediocre person is going to try to shame the high achiever into backing down, and the high achiever is just going to fight against
And try even harder.
And prove that the mediocre person is mediocre. But the mediocre person is never going to recognize their mediocrity. And so they are going to have this friction over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter the skill level doesn't matter. It only matters what their effort level looks like. And that's something that Nick Saban says all the time. And I would think that that's probably what the high achiever is, who the Sadducees and Pharisees see themselves as.
Well, sure.
They see themselves.
They've been doing it since they were small children.
Yes, I'm the educated one. I know all the things. I understand all the things. And you're just going through the motions and you need to fix you. I feel like that's how people.
Well, it doesn't seem to me that there's any effort on the priestly side to help the lesser.
Right. And this is Jesus's conversation. He's like, your job is to bring these people in. And they've been spending their time pushing people away, right, creating divisions and creating a scorecard of why you're not holy enough to, right? And so Jesus says, don't pursue after these titles.
Right.
Because the title doesn't mean anything if you're not doing the work.
Right. Well,
and then
he criticizes them, saying that the phylacteries and the borders of their garments are enlarged. Is he making fun of their? Well, he's kind of making fun of their outfit.
He is. He's challenging
that. At what point does this mean you're better by having a what's a phylactery?
It's like their cords and tassels. Yeah.
And so they've enlarged those, and then the borders of their garments to show all of the.
They want to show off, right? They're showing off like they're peacocking in a lot of ways. They're showing off this. This is how committed I am. It's so expressive in my garment that you can definitely tell my commitment to the word and to the law and how important it is to me.
Or to my fashion.
And it's like, in our culture today, there's some people who dress purposefully so that you will know this is my preferred lifestyle.
Yes.
What does verse 12 say? I know this says that we were going to start in 13.
And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Abased means shamed or put down or whatever.
Humbled, yeah.
Humbled, yeah.
So
he's telling the crowd, these guys, fancy outfits.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
They will be humbled. But those who humble yourselves, those that are lower, or not feel lower, but present themselves as in a lesser light.
Think of myself less.
Yeah. I'm just here. Just doing my job.
Yes. Yeah. Allow God to exalt you. Allow God to work through you. Allow God to move you in that direction. Verse 13. Now, we talked about hypocrites, talked about its meaning. All right. Let's go. Let's hit this thing.
Okay. Here's the first woe.
Yes.
But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in.
Yep. So that's the first woe. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in.
Right.
The people who want to pursue after God, you tell them, whoa, whoa, whoa.
You're not good enough.
You can't.
Yeah.
You're the bouncer. Like they're trying to be the bouncer to the presence of God. Seems strange.
Well, the gatekeeper.
Yeah, they're the gatekeeper. Yes. They're like, hey, you
You're
can't go in.
Enough.
Well, are you going in for me? And they're like,
no.
Nah. I mean, we already have we don't need to go on in there. We've got the law. We've got the instruction guide, and we know based on the instruction guide that you don't meet the requirements. So we're going to need you to stop here. Right. Well, who's going to go in there for us? Well, once a year, the great high priest
go in and
is going to go. He'll go for you. But until then, you just stay out here.
Yeah. And that's okay. That goes back to the beginning.
Yes.
That God allowed one in to ask for judgment for the entire tribe or all the tribes.
And the interesting thing is, there are some outside the promise.
Yeah.
They're trying to pursue after the promise. And they're gatekeeping this thing, saying, it's not.
You don't even qualify to come up the steps.
Yeah, you can't come up the Temple Mount. Temple guards. Right? Like this is their action. So that's woe number 1. All right, let's go. Let's do the next one.
Number 2.
Verse 15.
Well, I've got 14 is woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour the widows' houses, and for pretense make long prayer, therefore you shall receive the greater damnation. You don't see that in 14?
I have, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, and then
you close up widows' houses, and for a pretense of long prayer.
Scribes and Pharisees, hypocrite, you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense you make long prayers, therefore you receive the greater condemnation. Verse 15.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you surround sea and land to make one proselyte or believer.
Yep.
And when he is made, you make him twofold more than the child of hell than yourselves.
Wow, that's strong.
Yeah. They're putting others in such a position that there's no way that they could qualify.
They're like, we want to follow. They're like, yep, you can follow. And then they go, all right, here is, on top of Torah, here's the Mishnah and the Talmud.
Right. All these other 6,000 laws.
Yeah.
Learn those. Follow those.
Follow them. Stay outside the fence so you don't break the other laws. And they're like, can we do anything right?
No, you can't. Because if you don't understand the Torah, first of all, as an outsider, how in the world can you think of the Mishnah and the Talmud as being possible?
You have to so there's, out of the Torah, there's 365 thou shalt nots, or like negative commands. So it's like one for every day. So like every day you got to learn a new thou shalt not and be like,
I can't remember yesterday.
What was yesterday's thou shalt not? I don't know. I'm struggling with today's thou shalt not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, they get that. I think all of the laws in Torah were designed at the beginning, and that the Mishnah and the Talmud was, okay, we're going to redefine those first 613. We're going to redefine those and add to them each and every one another thing, another paragraph to the law.
All right. Verse 16.
Woe unto you, you blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple.
Oh, this is a good one.
It is nothing, but whosoever swear by the gold of the temple he is a debtor. Read that in your
If anyone swears by the temple, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by that oath. You blind fools, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that has made the gold sacred? And you say, if anyone swears by the altar, it's nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift that is on the altar, he is bound by his oath. You blind men, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? So whoever swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. So this is a challenge to the local way of doing things. They had kind of navigated this. Well, if I make this commitment, say I make this commitment between me and you, I make an oath. I swear by the altar. I swear by the altar. And I made it in a mistake. And along comes this priest, and he calls me to swear an oath. But it's going to contradict this oath. Well, I can make that oath, and there's something elevated above that commitment that I made that is going to nullify this oath and make this one binding. And it's like, what? How are we trustworthy people if this is the way that we live? So, say I gave you my shoe as collateral, doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they did. And they said, so Jesus is calling them out. He's like, how is the altar and the gift on the altar any different? Because what makes the gift on the altar sacred at all, except for that sitting on the altar?
Right.
And they would like
you can't change the effect of the oath.
They could talk about the throne,
mm-hmm.
and they could talk about heaven, but they couldn't say God's name.
Right.
They couldn't they could so we get in Matthew the kingdom of heaven, not the kingdom
right.
of God, right? Because it would be inappropriate for him to say God. But you're referring to God because that's his dwelling place. And the other way to refer to his dwelling place is to talk about his throne. The throne. Everybody knew what the throne was, not how we describe the throne now, but
right, yeah,
a royal throne.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only a royal throne because God sits on it.
Right.
And it's only significant. Heaven is only significant because God dwells there. And so Jesus is like, don't do that. It's bad practice. Why would you do that? If you swear by the altar, you're swearing by everything. You swear by the gift, you're swearing by everything. You swear by the gold of the temple, whatever. If you make an oath, fulfill your oath.
Right.
Commit to it.
Regardless of how you place it.
Yes.
Or how you phrase it, yeah.
Yeah. He goes on to another one. We're going to stop at verse 31, which I think gets us through. Yeah.
But you're on 23 now?
23, yeah.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithes of mint and anise and cumin.
Yep.
And have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith.
Yep.
These ought you. Wait a minute. These ought ye have done,
yep,
and not leave the other undone.
Yeah. It says, you blind guide, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. He's challenging them. He's like, you bring all these things out and you measure out your dill and your cumin. You measure out your spices to make sure you can give a tenth of everything that you've earned, everything you've collected. But you
omit the weightier matters.
You forget about judgment and justice and mercy and faithfulness. So you should take care of the second one and not forget about the first one. Care for people, show mercy, and still tithe.
Yes.
Verse 25.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. I love how he just continues to
Yeah.
hammer at the bear.
Mm-hmm.
For you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but they are full of extortion and excess.
Mm-hmm.
But inside the cup.
Yep. Verse 26. You blind Pharisee.
Yeah, you blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, and that the outside of them may be clean also.
So the Talmud has this teaching that this matches up to, and the Talmud would teach when you do dishes. I'm serious. When you do dishes, you clean a cup or a saucer or a bowl or a plate, clean the inside. And if you clean the inside of it, the outside's going to get clean as well. But if you clean the outside,
you're not cleaning anything.
You're not cleaning anything.
Right.
There's a lot of conversation that can follow that, right?
Oh yeah.
So this is something that they should know.
Is it he's saying that you're by cleaning the outside, you're leaving the pollution that's on the inside of the cup. You're not really accomplishing anything by cleaning the outside of the cup.
So right. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Your presentation, you hypocrites, right? You actors.
Yeah. Hypocrites.
Thespians who stand on the stage and present this perfect rendition of
cleanliness, completion, law, judgment, mercy.
You've cleaned up the outside. The outside looks good. I mean, look at that. Look at those tassels.
Yeah. But he's pointing at them again and again and again to say, you haven't done anything.
Oh, wait till he gets to the next one.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you are like the whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward.
You ready for that?
Are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanliness.
You're going to want me to read that.
Yeah.
For you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Nothing in the Jewish culture is more unclean than a human corpse.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're in there hanging out with all this deadness, whitewashing the tomb, whitewashing it so it looks clean.
Is he also saying that you're dead inside?
Oh, yeah.
Which would even be a bigger insult.
Oh, yeah, that's an insult.
Because you're clean. You may look great on the outside. Your white tombstone looks great, but underneath, you're just a dead man.
Yeah, I mean, that looks really cool. It's white. It's really bright. Have you been into Subway, by the way, lately?
No, I haven't been in there.
They just redid it, right? I walked in there the other night. First thing I said, wow, this is really bright. It's like all light gray and all their signs and stuff are lighted. I think they changed the tile on the floor. They updated the overhead lights. Everything is light gray. And I'm like, ooh, man, it's really bright in there. Yeah, everything is brighter in there. And it's like, that's what Jesus is saying. He's like, on the inside, boy, howdy. Looks bright and clean. But, hey, you know what that Subway still serves? The exact same sandwiches.
Pretty much.
I talked to a couple of the workers. They're like, yeah, everything is new. Like the signage is new, all of that. But the register, our cold plate, we do have new ovens, but everything else, our prep table, everything in the kitchen, all of it's the same. The only thing that got updated was like the customer area and the lights. And it's like,
it's whitewashed.
It's just whitewashed. It's just, Cleaned up, same thing. Offering the same thing. What are they offering? Well, they're offering dead bones. All this disobedience that killed all the old prophets, they're just creating space, a bigger space for more of the same. All those old Pharisees and Sadducees that they... Anyway, 29 through 31, let's see it.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the gravestones of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourself that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets.
Woo!
Well, that's hammering it home right there.
Hooray! Yeah. It's a lot of woes.
Yeah, prophets didn't fare well in the kingdoms.
It's a lot of hard-hitting, really not very kind things that Jesus is saying. People start to hear this word, woe. Woe to you. Have we heard that a lot in Scripture? Like, is woe used often?
Well, in this chapter, quite often. But
in this chapter, quite often, but like throughout all of Scripture, is it used very often?
I would have to guess moderately.
Yeah, not real often.
Yeah.
Who would have used this term, woe? Or even given a series of woes? Because I feel like God semi-regularly says, hey, woe to you, to give these warnings. Mm-hmm. But is there another spot in, like, if you were listening, if you're one of these educated Pharisees or Sadducees who are keepers of the law, keepers of the old way, and someone begins, like Jesus is, this discourse that is woe to you, woe to you, woe to you.
Are you thinking of
is there something in them? Do you think that there's a chance that they're thinking something other than what we're thinking? Like, do we hear it and we're trying to figure out, he's saying whoa, and we've done a lot of pashat so far, right? We've done a lot of surface level reading this particular passage.
Is he saying, are they hearing it as beware or watch out, something's coming that you're not going to like?
So they hear whoa, whoa, whoa. Most often, like we've been through this in Matthew quite a bit, Jesus starts talking, and usually Jesus starts talking and he's saying something, and he is saying what we think he's saying, but he's also pointing us somewhere else, right?
Yeah, well, he's pointing us back to he's giving us the remez.
He's giving us a remez. And so when these people start hearing woe, do you think there's a prophet maybe in the Old Testament who might help us have a better understanding of what's going on right now?
Elijah?
Different prophet. Elijah was the prophet of fire, and he did a lot of, but there's a different prophet, different book of the Old Testament, major prophet book of the Old Testament, that talks about a terraced vineyard. And it's the first portion of Isaiah.
Okay, yeah, okay. The first third.
Yes, the first quarter or so. It's really a little more than a quarter, so closer to a third, but the back 2/3 is divided into 3 parts. It's weird. Anyway, so we get this story about a vineyard in Isaiah chapter 5.
Right.
And in Isaiah chapter 5, picking it up in verse 8, Isaiah goes on this conversation from verse 8 to verse 23 of Isaiah chapter 5. And it starts like this. Woe to those who join house to house and who add field to field until there is no more room, and you are made to dwell alone in the midst of the land. The Lord of hosts has sworn in my hearing, surely many houses shall be desolate, large and beautiful houses without an inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield but one bath, and a homer of seed shall yield but an ephah of flour. That's one woe.
So for all your effort, you're going to get very little.
Yes, and says you're going to join house to house and field to field until there's no more room. No more room for who?
People.
So we're going to push.
Family.
We're going to push out all the people, and it's just going to be us.
Right. Well, there's no room for family. And what was the entire reason for having a vineyard?
Yeah.
So you can grow your family.
Yeah.
You can grow your business, grow your efforts.
And you happen to be in a particular place, this particular land, right? This particular land that God has chosen and placed them in. Where is it? It's at this
crossroads
of the world.
Of the world, yeah.
And he says, you're going to put all of that together so that nobody can come in?
Yeah, you're going to block all of the trade, all of the...
And then you're going to be left...
by yourself.
All by yourself. In your vineyard, because you don't have the people and the resources to care for it. You've blocked all these people out. Now you have all of this land and all of this space, and now it's just you, and there's no way for you to tend this field.
Right.
You know what happens to an untended field and an untended vineyard?
It goes back to nature pretty quick.
It all goes back to nature pretty quick. You got this 10-acre vineyard. Beautiful. Amazing.
But it won't give you
a bath of wine.
A bath of wine.
Yeah.
Which is
not much.
Many gallons.
Yeah.
It won't give you even an ephah, or what is that? Less than a bushel.
Ephah.
Less than a bushel of flour.
Yeah. And then verse 11, woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may run after strong drink, who tarry late into the evening as wine inflames them. They have lyre and harp, tambourine and flute and wine at their feasts, but they do not reward the deeds of the Lord or see the work of his hands.
Party hardy.
Party hardy. Therefore my people go into exile for lack of knowledge. Their honored men go hungry, and their multitude is parched with thirst. Therefore Sheol has enlarged its appetite and opened its mouth beyond measure. And the nobility of Jerusalem and her multitude will go down, her revelers, and he who exults in her. Man is humbled, and each one is brought low, and the eyes of the haughty are brought low. But the Lord of hosts is exalted in justice, and the holy God shows himself holy in righteousness. Then shall the lambs graze as in their pasture, and nomads shall eat among the ruins of the rich. Woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of falsehood, who draw sin as with cart ropes, who say, let him be quick, let him speed his work, that we may see it. Let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw near, and let it come, that we may know it. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, and put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. Woe to those who are heroes at drinking wine and valiant men in mixing strong drink, who acquit the guilty for a bribe and deprive the innocent of his rights. And then it continues to go on. But that's all the woes. What's going on here?
Well, Isaiah is saying that you continue to live the life that you're living.
Yeah.
Nothing good is going to come from it.
So I like that. So we've got Isaiah's guy right here. This is Isaiah's character. My fancy drawing. Jonas, you like my fancy drawing?
Yes. The stick figures with huge heads.
Did the girls take it? My stick figure. You like my stick figure, Jonas? I've got Isaiah's stick figure. This person that Isaiah is describing with his woes, what do we see? How would we describe?
Well, he's describing the Pharisees and the Sadducees and anyone else who earnestly believes in them.
So let's look. Woe to those who join house to house and add field to field. What does it take to add house to house? Field to field.
People.
Takes people. What else does it take?
Money.
It takes money. How much would it take to how much would it take to take 4 farms our size and combine them and make like one? How much is a section? How hard is it going to be to get a hold of a section of land these days, you think?
Several $100,000.
Is that going to get it? Take a few million, yeah?
Well, you're talking sections joined. Yeah.
Yeah, mile by mile. Square, 1 mile square. 640, yeah? I mean, it's going to take millions, right? So, farm out in western Oklahoma, normal, right? Multiple sections with the row cropping and cattle rotations and like working through that stuff.
At least.
Like, so what's that? 4 sections? 40. Whew. I mean, think about that. So 6 sections now, like if you were acquiring to add to 6 sections, like what type of demand would it take? What type of work would it take to maintain 6 sections? It's impossible to have another job, right?
No.
Like it's impossible to do anything else but that full time, and probably full time with a bunch of help.
Well, you'd have to have a family for every section.
Or more.
Yeah.
And it'd be full time for everybody, wouldn't it?
Right.
I mean, it's just. Yeah, I mean,
but
if you're row cropping, it's.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so I like that conversation. It's not just about having the land, it's about having
Workers.
all of the things that it requires to do the work in a timely manner to be able to get it done. Otherwise, again, the vineyard, if you start losing off people and it's just you managing a vineyard, a 10-acre vineyard, like if you can't manage it and you don't have the resources, what happens?
It's not going to be able to keep up with it.
Nothing. It's going to run you and you're not going to run it.
Right.
Right? Okay. So, what is the number? The second one. One who rises early in the morning, run after strong drink. How is it possible? How is it possible to rise early in the morning and run after strong drink?
You're not gonna get anything done.
You're not gonna get. How's it?
Rise in the morning and run after strong drink is. If you're rising in the morning, that means the bar opened early.
And what else? How do you afford it?
Yeah.
Well, if you have the resources to be able to afford it, you're not going to have it for very long, or you're very, very wealthy.
But would you be, if you were very wealthy, would you be concerned with the amount of land that you have?
I'm
If
just
you don't
saying,
have
like,
workers for it, I mean,
I'm just saying, so, like, the first woe, you're still talking about it's it's expense, right?
well, yeah, you're talking about the money
Mm-hmm.
that it would take to do that
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis, rising early in the morning to run after a strong drink.
Yes.
You're going to have some money in your pocket to, to pursue that.
Well, how about this? Woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of falsehood and draw sins as with cart ropes, who say, "Let him be quick, let him speed his work that we may see it." What's it take to get the equipment necessary to manage that much land? And they're like, well, you know what? Let's keep pulling it along. Let's get this work done so we can move on to the next one, right? Because we're talking about a day and age where that work was done by people. You employed people to get that work done. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, you know what? Hook those animals up to a cart rope, plow this faster. The faster we get this plowed, the more field we get seeded. The more field we get seeded, the more money we make. Seems as though we're still talking about a similar thing.
Right. But you're not going to get anything done without the money, without the laborer.
Agreed.
Without the equipment.
So he's going to continue to go on. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And that's not necessarily. But so far, in the light of what the picture that he's painting, it seems that he's painting a caricature of a specific type of person.
Right.
Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight.
They think they can get it done.
Yeah.
Without God's help. They think they can overcome everything without God's help. They think they can move through the land without God's help.
Woe to those who are heroes at drinking wine and valiant men in mixing strong drink, who acquit the guilty for a bribe and deprive the innocent of his right. What's it take to bribe people?
Money.
What's it take to, in their culture, to have had access to all of the strong drink to be a person of a valiant person of that person can really hold his liquor?
Well,
it definitely has to be money.
But you have to have a vineyard that would produce enough strong drink to get the man there.
Yes.
Drunk.
Agreed. And so there's a lot going on there. But if you had to talk about who's that person that Isaiah is drawing, what's that caricature? What would you say
He's defined as greedy.
Yeah, he's definitely greedy.
Yeah. Self-centered.
Yeah.
Or self-important.
It would seem. Yes. I think all those things would be true.
He's not going to be a person that is thinking ahead. They're thinking of the here and now. I mean, in the fact that you're not planning for anything in the future.
Sure.
You're saying that here's what I have and this is all I need, and then I'll worry about tomorrow. But
yeah,
that's the thought of, well, I've got enough money to do this today. I'll worry about tomorrow.
Yeah, pretty selfish, greedy, self-centered, even arrogant. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a reason they call it practicing medicine, right? Like nothing's exact. They're guessing and hoping and yeah. Hmm. I know how to do it right and you don't know anything. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yes. It is very important to to hold that place and it's easy. It's easy to be successful and then feel like you have the answers and that you're always right and you got to do it this way and if you'll do it this way and it's a dangerous place according to God.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, what about this character of Matthew? What does he draw? Let's listen to a few of his woes. Scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. We'll skip that part. Woe to you, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. Any similarity?
Well, yeah, the scribes and Pharisees have been in a position of, I'm the important one.
Yeah.
I have what it takes to enter the kingdom,
Yeah. It still seems like
to
they're
go into the Holy of Holies on a 1 year basis. I have all of that I need,
yeah.
and I'm not going to let you have any of it.
It still seems like they're denying access. They're
Yeah.
trying to expand their control and deny access.
Nothing that anybody else does is going to be good enough
Yeah.
to ascend to the position where I am.
It seems like in Isaiah, they were expanding, like putting house to house and land to land. So they were like trying to hold the foreigner out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The
And
Sadducees
now,
and Pharisees have banded together to such an extent that you can't get inside their
yeah, now they're
inner
trying to
sanctum.
hold.
Yeah, everything else is big. And what does he said? How can you enlarge the kingdom if you band together and don't let anybody through?
He says you make a single proselyte. When he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, that leads me to understand that they, in the rabbinical teaching,
Yeah.
1 out of 10 kids may be smart enough. They made one proselyte,
Yeah.
yet they've abandoned the 9.
Yeah.
Go back to the 1 in 99.
And not only did you abandon the 9, but now you're teaching this one that those 9 aren't good enough.
Right. Well, that's their whole.
That they're separated by God's will.
That's the whole point of rabbinical teaching, is that I'm going to teach you the right way, and this is the only way that can be done, and you should continue looking inward instead of outward.
And then we get this, woe to you. You say if anybody swears by the temple, it doesn't mean anything, but if they swear by the gold of the temple, it means something.
Mm-hmm. So they're looking at the wrong thing from the very beginning.
And then you tithe the mint and the dill, you forget about the weightier things.
Yeah, all things matter.
You clean the outside of the cup, but inside you're full of greed and self-indulgence.
Yeah, run to strong drink.
You're like whitewashed tombs. Inwardly, you're full of dead bones.
Right. Well, once again, it describes the field that they can't, or the vineyard that they can't produce anything with.
You build the tombs of the prophets. And you say, if we would have lived back in that day, we would never been a part of this but then you partner and say that you just identify yourself as offspring of those who killed the prophets.
Right. If we'd lived back then, we wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so what's that?
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, so what's
You would have followed along because that's their whole idea, is that to go along to get along.
So what's that caricature look like? How would you describe that thing?
Describe
that person who's been a caricature of what Jesus is drawing. If Isaiah's was greed and selfishness and arrogance, right? Is that what we said?
Arrogant, self-righteous.
Yeah. So we're saying Matthew is like self-righteousness. As opposed to greed and arrogance, we're going to be, he brings it up, greed and self-indulgence and selfishness.
Right.
Doesn't Jesus bring this up? He's like, feels like you're taking you're taking it a step further. Isn't that what it feels like Jesus is saying? You're taking that greed and selfishness, but you're turning it into self-righteousness and a justification of why you're right and everybody else is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been right all along because we've been following the law.
Yes.
All along.
The law says that I'm right and you're wrong. If I follow the law and my measuring stick, my scorecard of how the law reads says that I'm more righteous than you, and because I'm more righteous than you, I'm the gatekeeper of righteousness.
Right.
This is what the scribes and Pharisees are doing.
There is no room for someone who's not as self-righteous as I am.
All the rest of you guys aren't worth it. But it seems as though the law says that you're supposed to care for the foreigner and the alien
and the widow and the whole basis for their culture has fallen away from that
extreme hospitality.
Oh yeah, it's fallen away from that. But back in Isaiah's day, or back in
so
anybody's day prior to the new kingdom or the kingdom that they're in right now.
So are numbers significant?
Numbers.
Just numbers. If we're counting things.
No.
In the Jewish culture, are they significant?
Well,
so like if they stated 3 of them, what would they be referring to probably? 3 is like the Godhead, right?
Right. Oh, okay, yeah. If you're talking about the Holy Trinity.
If you're talking about, say, in Isaiah, if you're counting woes, and you came up with 6 woes, you'd be right. What is the number 6? What would it represent?
I know we've gone
over. Yeah, we have definitely gone over this. I didn't give him any heads up, so blindsided. It's on me. So the number 6 would be sinful man.
Sinful man, and then 7 would be completion. No, 10 is completion.
7 is completion, but 10 is like
perfection.
Yeah, because it's God and completion put together. Anyway, so 7, the number of completion.
Mm-hmm.
There's 6 woes in Isaiah. So when Jesus starts going on this discourse and says woe, then woe again, then woe again, and you're a Pharisee or a Sadducee.
Are you counting the woes?
You're starting to count woes, right? And you're like,
hope he doesn't get to 6.
I know he's like, if he continues on this discourse, he gets to number 6. They're thinking, they hear this woe, 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 and they're going, there is a woe discourse. I've heard this before. Where does this woe discourse come from? Isaiah. They would go, it comes from Isaiah. Old prophet Isaiah, he talked about this woe. And then he gets to number 6, and then they're like, all right. And then like Jesus does, he swerves, bob and weave. And they hear woe number 7. Their ears perk up, and they go, okay, I haven't heard this before. And then he stops at number 7. He's made some pretty direct claims. really direct claims in this thing. Okay?
Yeah.
He has made some so direct claims that he is challenging them. And he's saying to them, like even in the last woe, what did he tell them? He said, you make these tombs of the you build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous, and you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have taken part with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. He says, so you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Pretty aggressive.
Yeah. Well, they just they would they have claimed that had we lived in the olden times, we wouldn't have killed the prophets.
Yes, that's what they're claiming.
But then he just says, you just identified with people that did.
You just identified that that's your ancestry. That's
Right.
your heritage. That's what was passed down to you from generation to generation. Killing of the prophets.
Ignoring the woes.
And so if Isaiah says these 6 woes as warnings so that they don't get carried off, and he says, woe to you, stop being greedy and trying to hold on to the promise for yourself. This promise is for everybody. He says, woe to you, sinful man. 6, right? And Jesus goes, woe to you, and they're like, yeah, sinful man. Yes, we are sinful men. We understand that. We're sinful men. And Jesus gives them number 7, and it says, number 7 no longer is about sinful man, it's about completion. And he's basically telling these hypocrites, these actors, these scribes and Pharisees, hey, woe to you, because the sinfulness that your ancestors had, you're bringing it to completion. What does verse 32 say?
Be filled with the measure of your fathers.
Yeah, so in the ESV it says, fill up then the measure of your fathers. The NIV has a much better translation of this, and it says it like this. Go ahead then and complete what your ancestors started. So he didn't just give them numbers, he told them directly. Hey, you say that if you'd lived in those days, you wouldn't have killed those prophets, you wouldn't have shed that blood. You are so righteous, you are so self-righteous that you say that wouldn't have happened. But I'm telling you, you identified with your ancestors. Why don't you just go ahead and complete the work that they started? The work defined by greed and selfishness that is turned into self-righteousness.
Right.
And he goes on from there like this. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell? Therefore I send you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of whom you will kill and crucify, and some you will flog in your synagogues and persecute from town to town, so that on you may come all the righteous bloodshed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Not good. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Jesus is trying to warn them. Trying to help them understand that this self-righteous work is a completion of actions of greed and selfishness and self-centeredness. That it only leads to self-righteousness, justification of my actions, and condemnation of yours. And the question that Jesus asks is, how am I supposed to prevent you? How am I supposed to help you? How am I supposed to lead you to escape hellfire if you can't receive the correction of the Word of God? How can I help you? How can I gather you close, you and all of your offspring? How can I gather you close and protect you like a mother hen gathers her brood and gathers her chicks in time of need? How can I do that if you're completing the work of your ancestors?
Right. And I think that if the Pharisees had been as smart as I thought they would have read the rest of Isaiah.
Yeah. And so Jesus' woes are a lot different than there's a lot more. The woes are bad.
Yeah.
The challenge is significant. There's a lot from the Peshat that we got through that it was like, we should probably change this. But when we look at its connection and how it lays itself out in its connection back to the book of Isaiah, and it's talking about completion, and Jesus even says, just go ahead and complete the work.
Yeah.
Of your ancestors.
And that's what I say. You read the rest of Isaiah and found out what actually happened in his prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
That you'll understand that Jesus is saying that remez that I gave you before about the woes, read further.
Wasn't it the first woe in Isaiah that said that the house was desolate, there wasn't an inhabitant, there wasn't going to be anything left to be able to produce?
Right.
And that's how he concludes this last woe. See, your house is left to you desolate. At the end of Matthew 23, verse 38. See, your house is left to you desolate.
Yeah. There's nobody left in the house.
The warning I told you about, still the same.
Yeah.
It's a good word. I told you it was going to be good. It took us a little longer to get there. There was a lot to digest through. But hey, I got great news. We're all the way through chapter 23. We're going to make it into chapter 24 next week. So join us and follow along.
Yes. Good night.